first of all, welcome all of you. This is the third and final program in our 2002 visit series, which is a series of conversations with area residents to talk about rural life. Those of you who have been here for our other programs know we've done earlier programs this year on emergency services and then a fun one last time on Knox County Cowboys. Today our program is on Farming Nature's Way, and I'm not going to say very much about that because I'm going to turn it over to our moderators for today. But I do want to thank Faculty Lectureships, which has very generously supported this program through the years, and to let you know that this is a program of the Rural Life Center, of which I am the director, Howard Sachs, for those of you who don't know me. The visit series is going to take a holiday next year, in part because of my changing role at the college next year. But we hope that there will continue to be some activities associated with the Rural Life Center and the like, some of which will be coordinated by faculty colleagues and others who are here in this room. So keep your eye on the newspaper, and there will be other things that we'll be doing as well. One of the things that's the most fun about the job of teaching is working with extraordinary gifted students who do innovative and creative things. And this past fall, Becky Chamberlain here to my right, and Chris Myers over on the other end, who developed an interest in the local community and rural society, and particularly in organic farming, decided that they would like to do an extended internship with a local farmer to learn about various aspects of organic farming and more generally rural life. And one of the things to come out of their work is this program today, Farming Nature's Way. Hopefully they can share some of their experiences and what they have learned with you. And I'm not going to say another word. I get to just be part of the audience today, which I like just fine. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky and Chris, and they can introduce what we're doing today.
Well, as Howard said, Becky and I worked on the Helps Farm this past fall. And being on the farm and being involved in the community and other aspects, it really seemed to Becky and I like there's definitely an organic movement going on, both in the agricultural world and outside of the agricultural world, that's of interest to consumers. And our purpose today was to explore what that organic movement means. You know, you go to a supermarket and you see the organic label on food sitting there, and I mean, who really knows exactly what that means for the food, what that means for the agricultural community, and what that means outside of the agricultural community. Likewise, inside that community, a lot of farmers are turning over to organic in different aspects, and we want to explore what it's like on the agricultural side as well. So without any further ado, let me do a very brief introduction of our panelists who we're very lucky to have with us today. Directly to my left is Tim Patrick. He has served as the local chapter president of the Ohio Ecological Food and Farms Association, and also owns a farm in Danville. Primary operation is veggies and some lambs. Next to him is Eric Haltz, who is very actively involved in farmland preservation issues. Primary operation, again, are, say sheep?
Sheep?
Sure. And finally, on the end is Lisa Rickard, who owns a farm in Fredericktown and who is actively involved in rotational grazing practices. So let's give it a go.
I have the first question. Since organic is becoming a vague term and it has sort of a market value now, I mean, I own a shampoo that says organic shampoo. I have no idea what that means. There's still a lot of chemical things that I don't understand what those words are on the label. So our first question for each of you is, what is organic? So whoever wants to field that question.
Tim knows the answer. Well, organic would be farm
organic is now a federal program to be certified organic, which only Tim is of the three of us, because we choose not to go through that whole application process, and we have other reasons for not doing it. But the point is that we all three farm organically, but organic is if it's on a label, it now requires certification of the producer, which includes no pesticides, no herbicides, no, what else?
Routine use of antibiotics.
Right,
Fungicides.
no fungicides, no routine. So it's pretty natural. I mean, you can use products like rock phosphate or lime or other naturally occurring minerals as amendments to the soil. And you can use antibiotics, if I understand it, if you have a sick animal, but you can't use antibiotics just routinely. They're used as growth stimulators, actually, or as prophylactically in these crowded animal situations, because the animals are more than likely going to get sick, so you might as well treat them before. Just as an aside, part of my teaching responsibilities, 80% of the antibiotics in the United States are used on animals.
A large part of it is just put in their feed all the time, just in case. And then we eat the meat from those animals, and we develop resistance to antibiotics. And that's what the organic movement is trying to fight, part of it. But as Eric said, organic now has a legal definition. So you better not call your stuff organic, even if you meet all the requirements, if you don't have that license, that inspection. And I would also say that some things that are legally labeled certified organic are not as good as things that are not in some cases. And you can't tell what's what. For example, eggs that came from, I don't know, all the way across the country, where the chickens just got fed organically certified grain, and therefore the eggs can be called organic, I would say would not be as good as eggs that came from a local farmyard right here, even though they're not certified organic. And milk from California, where the cows are kept in, I believe, they aren't required to be on grass.
Right, they're in confinement.
They're in confinement, on concrete, they get organic grain, and that's organic milk, whereas a grass-based dairy farmer around here might not be able to get that certification for some other reason that doesn't really seem very important in the big scheme of things, or he doesn't want to go through the bureaucracy of getting it or pay the money, and his milk would be better. So you can't always just say, is it organic or not? If it is, it's okay. If it's not, it's not okay. Just to muddy the issue.
And what would happen to a farmer if they were to go through calling their stuff organic when they weren't certified?
Oh, false labeling. You know, they're breaking the law.
So would they
Federal
just
government.
fine for that?
I don't know. Good question.
There was a dairy up in Worcester that was calling stuff organic in a number of letters. Eventually they stopped calling their stuff. I don't know if mines or
I'm interested in why all of you decided personally to get involved in organics. Go right down the line again, or come right back?
Right.
Well, we don't have a farming background, as some of you know. We started, let's see, Jesse there is 15, so we started 15 years ago. We were working in the corporate world and decided we wanted to do something different, farm, and we wanted to have a healthy environment for the kids, healthy environment for us, a place we could work together, do worthwhile work, all those good things, and spraying chemicals over corn did not fit into that picture. You know, so we just said if that's how we have to do it to be farmers, then we're gonna not be farmers. And we want to try to produce all our own food, and so of course we want it to not have things in it that would be unhealthy, like pesticides and herbicides and things. So if it's what we need as human beings, then presumably it would be better for other people too. So if we can provide it for other people as well, then that would be a good thing to do. You know, so that's why we do.
Well, natural cycles work is the short answer to that. And actually, probably the most profitable farms in Knox County, probably the most profitable farm, which is the Sprays, I would guess, other than the Rickards, of course. Get lots of money off lambs. It uses fewer inputs, so these are very high-cost inputs to use chemical fertilizer and herbicides, and now, if you follow it, the market controlled by Monsanto both controls the seed, and you have to use their Roundup, which their seed is made ready for so that they're compatible. All these things gives tremendous market power on the, for you economists, market power on the supply side, because there are a few suppliers, and they, through the Agricultural Extension Service and the universities, as well as the promotion of the people who manufacture the inputs, the fertilizers and seed and so forth. They've convinced the farmers that you got to get big or get out, and you have to use these products. And they're very persuasive arguments, and you have to be really pretty sharp to go against them. So that's pushed us all that way. And those folks are making less money than the organic people. So in one sense, it's more profitable to be organic. And the other thing is just personally, I wouldn't want to handle that stuff. I mean, I don't know how people who work for the Farmers Exchange go out and spray atrazine, you know, all day long in the spring and inhale stuff. I mean, it's a known carcinogenic. I mean, it's not, there's no argument about that. So that I think is a big concern to organic farmers too. And incidentally, most produce is grown organically. I mean, locally produced produce. It's quite easy to do.
As far as the health issues there, we get a catalog of farm supplies and so on, and it devotes about a third of it to spacesuits, you know, white suits with something to protect your face, you don't, with respirators this big, with big filter tanks, and they're just meant for farm chemical application. And that tells me that that's what you ought to be wearing if you're doing it, which I don't believe anybody around here does when they apply. And, you know, so if you're not, you're really harming your body long term. And then you sell that and people eat it, which is another issue, so it just, so people knew when they look at the shelves in the grocery store and they see the strawberries sitting there, if they could look back in time and see what happened to those since they were planted, including the trip on the truck, the spray to make them ripen, the constant application of herbicides, especially for strawberries, the petroleum-based fertilizer added to the soil, the irrigation, if it's in California, that our tax dollars help pay for. You might not say, wow, $1.29, that's a good deal. You know, you might say, I want to buy these if they're 10 cents, you know? But nobody sees that in the grocery store. Check out this soapbox now.
That's very good.
Do you maybe want to talk about how you got involved with both farming and maybe OFA as well? Why you chose to?
I just like the work, I've always liked working outside. I worked in an office for 7 or 8 years, and it just was just too much. Too boring. And variety of work, I think. Organic, I mean, it just makes sense from a point of view of long-range economics. Maybe, you know, we're looking at agriculture now, like, you know, 50 years, you know, 500 years from now. Do we want to still live here? You know, that's what we got to think. I mean, this country's been around for a speck compared to other civilizations, so we're just not really thinking long-term.
Since you all have had a previous life, it sounds like, in the corporate world or in the business world, is there like a personal difference that you can tell, maybe even just in the group, when eating organic food as opposed to what everyone else buys in the grocery store? Do you think it's psychological, or do you think there's a real difference that you can feel?
I should have brought those eggs. There's a classic comparison to do with eggs. Get an egg from a free-range farm hen, and you crack it in a bowl, and then get an egg from a grocery store and crack it next to it. And the egg from the farm hen will be nice, the yolk will be high, and the other one will be flatter. That indicates age, it's older. I think Bruce read that the average age of an egg in a grocery store in January is, what, 11 months, was it? 11 months old. Also, the color will be very different. The farm egg will be bright orange. In fact, we've had some people say there's something wrong with your eggs, they're too bright orange. And the ones from the store will be just kind of flat yellow. And there can be differences in the white as well. But the orange is from the beta carotene from the chickens eating grains when they're out grazing. So it's, there's definitely, and there's a difference in taste too. Just for those, that one example.
Our next question is related to, in your own farm, can you give an example of how you deal with this particular problem in an organic way, without being able to use herbicide or pesticide or anything like that?
With a hoe. Well, weeds are a problem, particularly in row crops, and there's actually good cultivating and tillage equipment made now for, or first there used to be. I mean, everybody did. This is all since 1945. Before 1945, everybody farmed organically, so this is the industrialization of agriculture is a 50-year deal, and so we're going back to using many of the methods. But that's a problem. We raise popcorn and have to cultivate it by hand, and it's a lot of work. I mean, I could buy more expensive equipment, I suppose, but it's not justified by the return. So we end up doing a lot of things by hand. I shared with some of you, we had like half of our pond covered with algae, in part, I think, stimulated from the heat last week. But so I was going to use silver nitrate as one of the things you can put on the algae and it'll kill it. But it then goes to the bottom of the pond and uses up oxygen, reduces the oxygen in the water, so the fish, you're likely to get a fish kill and other problems. I don't know what the other, of course you never know what the other problems with sticking silver nitrate in there are. But anyway, we spent a better part of the weekend raking the algae off the pond onto the bank, and it'll dry out. And I asked a friend who has a lot of ponds, who runs a golf course, he says, you just need, there's a fish called white hamers, which eat grass, and we just don't have enough of them. So we rake off the algae and get more white hamers. But if you go to Soil and Water Conservation, which I did, and ask them, they'll say use silver nitrate, because that's, as Americans, you know, it's like fast food. You know, we want a fast solution, no labor.
The algae's good for you sometimes, too. Or chicken.
Do you like it? Green or dry?
Dry.
Yeah. Level.
You never got a regular.
Next step.
Would you say that, as a result, for all of you, it's more work intensive to do organic, or in the cases when it's
Oh no, it's more labor intensive. No, across the way.
Well, it's just economy of scale. You don't have, you're not doing, because you don't want to, you're doing small scale stuff because that way you don't attract a lot of diseases in your crops and pests, so you're doing smaller scale stuff, and you can't like justify large equipment. Justify large acres, you can just justify 15 Mexicans, you can justify a lot of these things to come to your farm and work. So it's just, bigger is more efficient a lot of times, but it's not so good in the long run.
I'm not sure that it would be more work for us with our sheep flock. We have a large sheep flock around here. We're up to 750 ewes now. And we use intensive rotational grazing, which means that once you have this setup, all the fencing that you have to do to make all these 4-acre paddocks, and the sheep are trained every day or every 2 days, depending on the rate of grass growth. You go out there, open the gate, they know what that means. They come pouring through into the new paddock, they get new fresh feed. It's easy. It's great. And if the pasture needs renovation, you know, we just add more seed to it, or we till a little bit and add some seed. But the biggest effect, I think, is animal impact. You know, how you handle the sheep, how long they stay in a particular paddock. We also have a few cattle, whether you take cattle in there. If you take cattle into a paddock regularly, red clover will become dominant. And if you always graze with sheep, you don't even know you've got the seed bank of red clover in there. We get bluegrass and white clover with sheep, and if we switched to cattle, in a year there would be red clover, without us adding any seed or anything. So that's, anyway, it's easy to manage them. It wouldn't make sense for us to spray anything on the, like Roundup or anything like that. And, I mean, I think most of the intensive sheep operations, if there are any, they would have, well, no, I know there are some, they would have it in the barn all the time and have to feed them all the time. And our sheep feed themselves. We just open the gate and they take care of it, so it's easier.
It seemed like there was some mention of it economically being easier in certain cases, especially in a small scale situation. Do you guys find that there are any struggles kind of on a more macro level that are more related to organic farming, whether that be economics or distribution-wise, sales?
Yeah.
More so, would you say, than non-organic?
Yeah, I mean, there's, like producers in Mount Vernon, they don't have a separate organic auction, do they? I mean, if your sheep were organic, you wouldn't necessarily,
Yeah.
probably that would be, there might be, within time, but still, so there's no, they wouldn't get a premium there, there's no, for people like Rex Spray, large grain farm, there's no organic elevators, they have to come to local markets, on their own shippers, people to buy, hundreds of bushels of grain, so you can't just take it in and offer it in the hand, sell it, so, and same with the produce, there's no, there's auctions, vegetable auctions around, Holmes County and some Knox County, but whether you get a premium for organic, it all depends on who's the buyer and what else is selling it. Why should you pay, more for, something organic or something that's unless he's looking for something.
So, how do you combat that? How our organic farmers combat?
You gotta find your own market.
Yeah, I think our organic farmers and small
You have to
farmers
do it all.
do it all. I mean, they all do what's called in the vernacular direct marketing, which is really direct sales. People either come to the farm through a contract agreement, they buy take so much per week, or like Tim goes to 2 farmers markets, including here in Gambier, we don't. And the Rickards go to the Mount Vernon Farmers Market, that's an outlet, but it's not very adequate. Basically what's happened is the industrialization of agriculture. This is a macro tip, this is, so you want to write this down, part of the macroeconomic aspect of this, that there are no longer any there's no local market. The local market was destroyed in the last 50 years with the industrialization of agriculture, and now, as you know, you get your food from 1,500 miles away, and there are just tremendous concentration between Tyson and Purdue Chicken and the Hog Smithfield, and right. I mean, there's just a handful of food distributors, essentially manufacturing food. So the little local system that used to be here, I mean, before 1950, everybody bought their chicken locally. Now, almost no one buys their chicken locally. It comes from the Tyson or their Case. There's a number of them actually in Gerber or in Ohio. So we don't have that local. The point is, we don't have that local distribution system any longer. And so if you say, hey, I'm going to be a local farmer and I've got stuff to sell, you've got to create your own market. You've got to find your own customers. The Rickards to have a delivery in the winter months. In the summer months, they're available at the farmer's market, and you slowly, like all of us, build up your own clientele. But I mean, speaking for us, and that would not be for the Rickards or the Patricks, I mean, it's a trivial amount of money. I mean, I always don't want to have these conversations, and I always give people the number. I mean, we're 3 years into this farm, spending $40,000 or $50,000 a year. I mean, this is the number I put on the tax return, somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 a year for a revenue that's somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000. So I mean, you're not gonna do this. Now, the Rickards and the Patricks are more profitable operations than ours, but those numbers are,
We're not spending as much on the.
yeah. I like this. So, I mean, I'm always concerned when you have a discussion like this that someone thinks that, well, this is pretty easy to do, and I don't know, easy to do, but you know, is doable economically. And I think what the Rickards and the Patricks have done has been to create some economic viability in an organic operation. But it's they've been at it for a lot of years, and it takes a lot of labor, and you got to be very smart about it.
And our last question is, why should the average consumer care? You started to answer that already, but do you have any last points? As somebody who isn't a farmer, why would it matter?
Well, I would say, my biggest thing is, you know, I mean, you can use the scare tactics like, you know, destroying the world or something like that. I mean, conventional farming, the way it's run now, is not sustainable. We're going to destroy the world, we are. I mean, it's not gonna happen tomorrow, it's not gonna happen in 50 years, but it will happen. I mean, there have been civilizations 2,000 years ago that have destroyed themselves by chopping down trees and causing erosion. It didn't happen within 50 years, 100 years, maybe even 300 years, but this is going to happen to us. This way of life is going to destroy civilization, I think. So, if you have grandchildren, if you expect them to have grandchildren, you know, do something. Do something about it.
Well, with that, why don't we do the first two questions that some of you might have?
I want to add something.
Oh, go ahead.
Little higher note here, a little happier note.
Okay.
I think that the other reason that consumers should care besides food safety and destination certification is because if you, when we sell directly to consumers, people, I mean consumers, they come to see the farm, they get to know us, we get to know them. They tell their friends about us. It's community. And that's the other thing that the industrial food system has gotten rid of. How many people do you chat with at Kroger, you know? And at the farmer's market, you're not only getting connections between farmers and non-farmers, people who eat food, you're also helping to support that local farming community in and of itself, which is a real big part of the character of this area. I mean, if all the small farms got bought up and made into development, the area's character would change. If the small farms were combined into bigger ones that were farmed by Kraft or Monsanto or somebody, I don't know, and nobody actually lived there, the character of the area would change too. So it's a way to support the local community, get safer food, and help sustain the natural systems that we all need to survive.
Well, on that happier note, open it up to questions. Is there any farmers or any in the audience even who want to speak up about something that we've already brought up, or if people have questions about anything? Start you back.
How feasible is organic farming, like on a scale similar to Kraft or you know, just how?
Large-scale organic farming?
Yeah.
Very feasible.
Yeah.
Being done, oh yeah. There's a great piece by George, or Michael Pollan. It was in the New York Times Magazine 6 months ago that we have on that. Essentially speaking to, I mean, there are large produce farmers in California, produce companies, operations, that run both a chemical and an organic side by side. It's a big market. I mean, that's one of the things about it. I mean, the conventional wisdom is it's growing at 20% a year, the organic market. And so in order to service that market, you have to use all the same techniques that all the other marketers do. And the summary of that is you have to have it in Kroger's. And you got to do all the things that Kroger's wants, which is they have to be able to order on the computer and scan everything, and that takes up tremendous scale. So it's a big business.